Continuing here. So anybody that believes freedom is something that it's not is deluded. And if you believe freedom is something you can go alone, you're deluded. When we're talking about absolute freedom, okay, we must include financial freedom. And we must understand that in order for us to be truly happy, we must please the benefactor, the grantor of happiness. That is our owner. Okay? And if you think that you can just look after old number one, and that's your only problem, that you can divorce yourself from your fellow human beings, okay, who are really desperate. Okay, a lot of people are very desperate financially. Around the world, not just in America, around the world, we see financial desperation. Artificial, imposed, invented, conjured up, manufactured desperation. And it's all about the money. So just fundamentally, if I teach one thing to the world, let it be that this is artificial suffering, and I object loudly and vociferously to. I hate it with a passion. Okay, I'm just like everybody else. I admit that I can be a money lover, but I also admit that I hate it even more, and I wish it was never invented. All it's been is a tool to oppress the masses, to steal their rightful inheritance, their rightful wealth. There's absolutely nothing radical about this idea that the earth belongs to all of us from birth, in which case our only reality would be unspeakable wealth, freedom, through that unspeakable God-given inheritance, wealth, because our parents own the universe and all that is contained therein, and that includes the earth and the inhabitants of the earth. So, and we're in a heap of trouble, folks. Okay, and we've got to do something, man. I know I can't just sit here and do nothing. I can't say, well, I'm okay, I'm going to survive, and yeah, before you know it, a couple of years, I'll be able to get Social Security, and I can still work, so I'm looking good. Financial security for me, and whatever. I get a pension, whatever. I'm looking good. I've got enough investments, and I can live off the dividends, and it's easy street for me. Or I got this good job that's very secure, and I'm financially free. And so we get delusional. We get in our own little niche paradigm, which separates ourselves from our fellow man, and by extension, it separates ourselves from the mind of God, the heart of God, the Spirit of God. We don't have a right relationship with our owner when we don't care about other people's freedom. Yes, financial freedom. And yes, we could have done this with capitalism, but we didn't. Capitalism does not exist in the true sense anymore. Okay? We're in a lot of trouble, and I don't know what it's going to look like. It would be good to have some monumental crash, okay, good will come out of it, like I pointed out before, and the rich don't have anything to worry about in a crash. It just means their money is worth that much more. But we've got to live and let live. There's a lot of people that are willing to live and happy to live modest lifestyles that don't need a lot. But people need affordable housing, okay? We set up this Section 8 housing in the 60s or 70s, when really this is a huge subsidy. You understand? And I don't know how much they started, kicking in these taxes that the rich are paying, because it's the rich that pay most of the taxes. But you understand, they pay and then they get it all back. Okay. It has exacerbated the problem of unaffordable housing tremendously. It was set up as in a surreptitious, diabolical manner. Okay, that's what these welfare subsidies do. They look altruistic. They look benevolent on the surface. But when you dig deeper and you see what the motivations behind the people that introduce these things are, it's very cunning. It's very crafty. It's very scheming. And they profit. You understand? This is all. So many of the real estate, particularly housing real estate investors out there, have made fortunes because of this welfare subsidy. It has not helped the poor. It has driven up prices dramatically. Housing costs, it has driven them up dramatically. Okay? That's just a fact. It hasn't worked like the subsidy that we call food stamps. Okay? It hasn't worked like that. That has been much more widely spread out among the population. And it has not, there is a semblance of true capitalism at work in the food industry. There is. And it's no small miracle. But it hasn't been entirely successful because, like everybody else, it's forced to pay higher housing costs, which is the root driver of everything, of all the market manipulation and the collusion and the need for cost of living adjustments, this chain reaction of cost of living inflation. Remember, people working at the grocery stores have to pay rent. They have to pay a mortgage. People working on the farms have to pay rent. They have to pay mortgage. People working in the food processing factories need to pay their rent. They need to pay their mortgage. So if their rent and their mortgage go up, you tell me what they need. Do they not need a raise just to stay even, Stephen? And are we going to blame them? We're going to say, oh, well, if we give raises, it's going to cause inflation. Is that the reason that we've had inflation? I mean, folks, I just know what the hell I'm talking about here. And I can't let it worry me. I don't get ulcers. I pray. I turn it over to God. And He knows how much it disturbs me, how much it frustrates me, and increasingly so because problems just getting worse. They keep on chipping away at the worth of your currency through raising your cost of living tax. In 6 ways from Sunday, they find ways to raise your cost of living tax. Okay, and I don't know where it's going to end, but it has to end because wages aren't keeping up with it, and it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And how many people? I mean, is that the way it should be? People that work their butts off at some minimum wage job, they need to go get welfare to make ends meet. Is that the America we want? Is that the shining light example we want to set for the rest of the world? And where the wealth and income disparity just continues to grow and the poor just get more desperate and hopeless about their situation, their chains, their enslavement, and that bar for those that are just so hopeful to enter the middle class home ownership, that bar keeps getting more out of reach. It gets harder and harder to crack that nut. Is that really the America we want? Is that really capitalism? Is that really freedom? Okay, is that the direction? How far can we go in this direction? Let me ask you that. How far can we go in this direction? Okay, it's Zimbabwe in slow motion. It's Weimar Germany in slow motion. How is that better? Okay, like the pimple, you let it come to a head. You just don't keep feeding it and letting it fester and just do little minor things to keep it down while it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and swelling. And so I'm going to put a little topical thing to keep it from, don't want it to open up, don't want everybody to see my pimple, so I'll put something to mask it on, and, instead of fasting and letting it come to a head, pulling off the Band-Aid, ripping it off and letting it heal. How far can we go down this road, folks? You see why I have this sense of foreboding, like a deer panting for water in the desert? I'm practically beside myself, and the only hope I have is turning to God. I can't. I mean, no human can save me from this. What can anybody else do? So what am I telling you? I'm telling you, turn to God for the wherewithal, the ability to cope and contend with this system, to fight the good fight, to keep fighting the good fight for humanity, knowing that if you're going to be truly happy, you sure as hell better give a damn about the least of men, about your fellow man, like Christ said, whatsoever you do or fail to do for the least of these, you have done or failed to do. Remember, you can't divorce yourself from your fellow man. That's divorcing yourself from Christ. Okay, then you failed to do it for him. Ignorance is bliss. That's against him. You're ignorant about what he taught. You're not paying heed to the true master, the true master instructor. Okay? You're scoffing at him. You're not paying him due respect. You're arrogant. And you're saying, no, I've got to rationalize this thing. In order for me to cope, I've got to divorce myself. I can't. It's just too overwhelming, and I can't. It makes my head hurt, and and it gets me upset and ruffles my feathers, and you've got to deal with it. You've got to deal with it. If you don't deal with it, you're a coward. You're copping out, and you will get a coward's reward someday. That's it. So let's put our big boy and girl pants on and go out there and fight for what is right. Fight to be happy. Fight to be free. And your freedom, your true happiness is entwined inextricably in the welfare of your fellow human being. It's that simple. So you've got to care about justice being the rule of the day on earth. And it all has everything in the world to do with money. Because you can be free in every other way out there imaginable. But if you're not financially free, you're not free in the truest, most absolute sense of the word, meaning of the word. Okay? It's that simple. I'm going to get on to some current events from this past week. I already talked about this car fire. This thing is unbelievable. Oh, over 1,000 houses lost. And there's a lot of survivor's guilt, a lot of PTSD when, one neighbor's house burned down to the ground and yours was unscathed. It's kind of like living near a war zone. This idea that we are inextricably interconnected, that we're picking up each other's happiness and sorrows through osmosis is very real. And the closer you are to the epicenter of such suffering, the more you feel it. So in this neck of the woods, I'm about 60 miles south of Redding here in Chico. It is palpable, the distress that people feel. I mean, this is very upsetting that the entire city of Redding, for the most part, had to evacuate, and their whole lives have been turned upside down. I mean, could you just imagine how upsetting that would be to your normal, comfort zone? It's just unbelievable that the whole city, and I've got a history in Redding. I was married there in 1984, but and I've lived there in Shasta County off and on through the years, but it's tough, folks. So pray for these people, and pray for all of us. I mean, we're all experiencing this storm. That's what it's like. I mean, we've got a satanic storm. This is that foreboding I'm talking about. And Satan does not want to relinquish power and control. That means he would have to relinquish the power of the money printing, and being the establishment and the status quo and the rulers of this dark world. Going to fight tooth and nail. He's going to pull out all the stops to keep this ball rolling, keep this trajectory to death and destruction going, keep this ship on this course to careening over the falls. Okay, whatever analogy you want to use. Keep this train on the track to crashing into a wall. But sooner or later, and the sooner the better, okay, that we grab the bull by the horns and turn this thing around. And you know what I'm referring to. I'm referring to the cost of living tax that continues to grow here in California, which is ahead of the curve of everybody else in America. So until you show me that the cost of living tax is in now reversed and it's in perpetual decline, I won't accept anything else as evidence, okay? You show me the cost of living tax is on its way down, that the worth of our currency is on its way up, and then I'll believe you. But I need some appreciable amount of time before I actually believe my own eyes, okay? This has to be a new trend where we really have locked it in place. That's what we need to do. We need to lock it in place. That's it. And we've got to demand it. We've got to have, we the people being the check and balance and the oversight and the accountability in this establishment, in the issuance and the printing of currency. Nothing short of that is really going to fix this thing permanently, okay, to where we're going to be set free, that we're not going to care about money at all, that the money masters of misery are going to be completely rendered irrelevant. We just don't care. The system will work just perfectly fine, unfathomably better than it has been working, where we can serve each other with a bounce in our steps, with joy in our hearts, and a song on our lips, instead of the way it is with drudgery, okay, with chains, with sucking ever and ever more sour lemons, okay. Prove me wrong. Show me a time in history when it was allowed, okay. The money masters of misery, the top money lovers, the root of all evil, could not resist the power of money and the ability to keep the people enslaved and steal their rightful inheritance, their rightful wealth. And I know what the hell I'm talking about.